So I'm gonna do a Mount Rushmore book tag, and I'm Canadian.
Thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel and making it the best it can be.
Hey fantasy fans, welcome back. It's Dan here with Treebeard Book Reviews. It's been a while since I've done a book tag, so I'm really kind of excited to do this one because I'm Canadian and I don't really know too much about American history. I know a lot about ancient history and about American. I don't know anything about American presidents, so I thought this was kind of an interesting book tag. I'm like, yeah, I'll take a swing at it. It's kind of cool. So I was tagged in this by Fit to Be Read. This is a great channel. You should check it out, guys. He does a lot of sci-fi stuff, and I've been watching mainly just for some of his sci-fi reviews. As you know, I do read a little bit of sci-fi here and there. So, yeah, guys. So this should be a fun book tag. Like I said, I don't know too much about American presidents. I don't really know the history of Mount Rushmore, but I could pick 4 authors. So why don't we clip along here? So the first question is, who is my Mount Rushmore? My 4 authors. And I'm going to be picking from the fantasy genre. So my 4 authors are J.R.R. Tolkien, Brandon Sanderson, Terry Pratchett, and Christopher Paolini. So these are the 4 authors that I just love, I'm going to explain why I picked them, but J.R.R. Tolkien, known for The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, The Silmarillion, all the other stories within the Middle-earth universe. Brandon Sanderson, obviously known for the Cosmere, probably one of the biggest fantasy authors right now. I don't know how many books he's written. He writes a book a week, it seems like. So he always seems to be in the news. A poor guy, he actually just caught COVID recently. He sent out a recent newsletter, and he caught COVID, so that's unlucky. But yeah, so Brandon Sanderson, he is the second head on my Mount Rushmore. The third being Terry Pratchett, my favorite author of all time, who wrote my favorite series of all time, which is Discworld. I don't think really too much more needs to be said for Terry. And then Christopher Paolini, he wrote The Inheritance Cycle. And I think he also came out with a new book recently called To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. So yeah, those are my 4 heads that I chose for the fantasy genre. The next question, number 2, is how did you make your choices? What did you base your choices off of? Like, are they your favorite authors, most impactful, most influential? What was the criteria? So yeah, kind of all of those things. Favorite authors being Brandon Sanderson, Terry Pratchett, and Tolkien. Like, I read The Lord of the Rings every year. In terms of impactful, I say like Tolkien and Paolini probably the most at first. Paolini really got me started with the fantasy genre, reading Aragon when I was a teenager, and that just kickstarted me into the fantasy. And then I read Tolkien, which was my next. I read The Hobbit and then Lord of the Rings. So the definitely most impactful favorite authors. Like I said, I read Lord of the Rings every year, so I love it. I'm currently doing a reread right now. I will be picking up The Two Towers on audiobook soon. So yeah, and Brandon Sanderson, I love his magic systems. So these are my picks. I picked these for all of these reasons. It's not just one reason that they're influential or impactful. It's just kind of a culmination. And like Terry Pratchett now, I started reading Discworld 2 years ago, and Terry's just quickly shot to the top. I think I've read 22 Discworld books, so I'm about just over halfway through the series. And I know the more I read, the more I'm gonna love him. So yeah, that's why I picked these authors. All right, so number 3 is, who is your George Washington, the founder, the best, started it all? And that's obviously Tolkien. Tolkien is obviously number 1. He's the founding father of fantasy. My channel is named Treebeard Book Reviews off of Treebeard, who is my favorite character in The Lord of the Rings. So he is the founding father for me. I just love Lord of the Rings. It's one of those books where I've read it so many times now that I can just drop right in. It's so familiar. It's so much fun. And every time I read it, it hits all these same notes for me. And Tolkien, he was just a master at languages. And that was one of the things I did in university that I really loved, is I loved languages. I loved Latin. Latin was I took so many Latin. I think I took like 6 or 7 Latin courses in university just because I love the language, love the linguistic side of it. And, learning languages makes you a better reader and writer. So Yeah, so Tolkien, he's the founding father for me. He's my George Washington. All right, so number 4, who is your Teddy Roosevelt? He carries the big stick. He kind of clubs you over the head with the storytelling or the ideas, or sometimes he gives you a headache. And so that one is Brandon Sanderson for me. I love Brandon Sanderson's world building, like he's done within the Cosmere. And he's got all these big idea magic systems too. He has such amazing magic systems in like Stormlight, in Mistborn. I love the Warbreaker one. So he's got all these great ideas that he's able to pull off and, flesh out a full world, flesh out a full magic system, have great, wonderful characters that some of the characters still in Brandon's books like stick with me. Like, I think it's like Light Song from Warbreaker. Kaladin's another one, Dalinar, like Tensoon the Khandra from Mistborn. So he has so many characters. This guy, he has just such a wealth of, or just sorry, not a wealth, but like a love of the fantasy genre, and he pulls from all of his predecessor and his influences like Robert Jordan and Tolkien, and he's a really great writer. He can club you over the head a little bit too much sometimes, I find, where a lot of the books sometimes do feel like video games and they're just kind of like flashing lights at you and you're like, oh god, like, okay, Brandon Sanderson, I get it. Sometimes he does club you over the head a little bit with the comedy. I find his comedy does not always stick for me, and that pulls me out of a lot of his stories where I feel like he's just kind of like thumped me on the back of the head. It's like, haha, I am so funny, and this is his brand of comedy just doesn't hit me in the right way. So yeah, Brandon Sanderson, I think he's a great fit for the Teddy Roosevelt slot. He's well loved, well established. He's one of those guys you just like. Because he's really involved with his community too, and you can see that he's in touch with his fans with this big Kickstarter. He knows what his fans want, and I think he's really got a pulse on the fantasy fans that are out there. My Teddy Roosevelt is Brandon Sanderson. All right, so who is my Abraham Lincoln? One who has gone too soon, someone who you'd love to see more books from, and that is a no-brainer, and that is, well, the only author who, well, I guess no, Tolkien's gone, but it's Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett is the one, he's gone too soon. He passed away so early, I think, and he had such a terrible disease. I think it was early onset Alzheimer's. It was a very aggressive form of Alzheimer's, and just to think that there could be potentially more Discworld books just makes me sad. Like, I know there's 41, and maybe I'm being greedy, and I would have loved to have there been 81 or 82 Discworld books because they're so much fun, and even though I know there's enough there for me to read and enjoy for the rest of my life and reread and constantly pick back up, I just think Terry went too soon. It's such a shame that I didn't discover my favorite author until after he passed away, which is sad. It's sad for me. I do have a signed like Pratchett, and it's a treasure, and I absolutely love it, even though it's addressed to Mary. It's not even addressed to me. But yeah, it's sad that Terry is gone, and that we won't get any more Discworld books, and that there's such a laugh, and there's so much fun, and there's so much heart, and this man understood humanity so well, and yeah, no, Terry. Terry is my Abraham Lincoln, and I wish we got more of them. So that is my third head of Mount Rushmore, Terry Pratchett. The last head, Thomas Jefferson, is obviously we know who it's going to be. So I guess the question is, Thomas Jefferson. This person was riding high, but now you're a bit more mature. People are kind of wise to his antics, or he's not seen as in a greater and as a good light. Kind of sometimes, he's got a bad record. So that is obviously Christopher Paolini for me, where, I really enjoyed Aragon, but I also read it when I was 16, and he wrote the book when he was 16. And we're actually very similar in age. He's a little bit older than me, but it's not him as a person. He's actually a nice person-ish. I find he can be a bit of a snob sometimes. I've listened to some of his like live chats, and I'm like, oh, he's kind of like thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, which is weird. Like he just came off as very snobbish, and he talked down a lot. Just this is like on one or two interviews I saw. Don't take this for gospel. And then the other thing too was like his track record as a writer isn't super great. Aragon was good. I did like Eldest. I think Eldest probably is my second favorite. And then they just progressively got worse from there. Like Brissinger, I didn't enjoy too much. And Inheritance was just awful. And it took him a long time to write it. And I know he was a 16-year-old kid when he started. And I think it took him, 15 years maybe to finish the series. It might be less. I think he finished it when I was in university. So like 2016, 2017, I want to say 2016, I think is when he finished it. And the books were okay, but you could really feel his influences on the page. And now they've become more well-read in fantasy. I can't really go back to that series and enjoy it or take it seriously anymore. I just don't enjoy it. I've tried to reread and I end up DNFing it. So I just think the more older of a reader, like more mature of a reader I become, the less I've liked him. And even though like he was one of my first authors I read and I enjoyed his work, I don't really see myself going back to his writing. And I think I've also been watching a lot of reviews on To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and they haven't been overwhelmingly good. So I think, Christopher Paolini, it was really lightning in a bottle, and I think he just got super lucky. He's like super lucky where, I think his parents owned a publishing company. So he obviously, I think any other 16-year-old who writes a book that has a lot of fan service and just it doesn't really pay homage to its influences might not get picked up. So it's kind of right time, right place. Just, he rolled a nat 20. So yeah, Christopher Paolini, he is my choice. Where, he's a famous, well-known writer. He's done really well for himself, and I just don't think his track record, keeps up. This was the Sacagawea question, like, who would be a fifth head you would pick, but outside of the fantasy genre? And who would I pick? So I'm going to pick someone in the science fiction genre because I read a lot of science fiction now. I'm going to pick Christopher Rocchio just because of this guy. I think his career, I hope, is meteoric. He's just a fantastic writer, a fantastic person. I've hung out with him a few times playing some games and just, had an interview with him and had some live chats. He's such a great guy. He's really connected with his fan base, and he's a fantastic writer. The Sun Eater series is quickly becoming one of my favorite series of all time. I think I listed it as, I think it's like number 2 on my all-time. He beat out Brandon Sanderson, for crying out loud. So I love his writing style. I love the characters he's crafting. He's got some of the most like stand up and shout moments in his books. But he has these really emotional moments too. And I think he's just such a fantastic writer. And, he pulls from his influences, but he pays homage to them, like such as Frank Herbert with Dune and some of the Star Wars stuff, I think he's very respectful of their material. So Christopher Rocchio would be my fifth Mount Rushmore head. So yeah, guys, so this has been actually a really fun book tag. I really enjoyed doing it, and I was like, yeah, because I'm not American, so I am Canadian. And I thought, who would I tag in this? So I'm actually going to tag people who aren't American. So I'm going to tag Theo over at The Rekindled Reader. So this one's for you, Theo. I know you're Canadian as well. I want to see your, shot of this. And then Kay from Kay's Hidden Bookshelf. She's also Canadian. So Kay, you're up. And I'm actually going to tag, I know these guys are bigger channel, but that's fine. I'm going to tag them anyways. Is the Brothers Gwynn. They're English. I'd love to see them take a shot at the Mount Rushmore. I know they're going to pick some, they're probably going to do historical fiction genre, which would be fantastic. So, and they have to probably put their dad on there. I hope they do. So yeah, guys, that was my Mount Rushmore book tag. Thank you for at Fit to Be Read for tagging me in this. It was a lot of fun. So anyways, guys, thank you guys so much. If you like the channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. It all helps. And guys, if you want to become a patron, I do have a Patreon channel where you can check out my tiers there, from Ent or Seedling to Old Man Willow, where you can support the channel and help me progress with my reading. So that's it, guys. I'd like to thank everyone. And we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.